Dynamic Christian Ministries presents Start Our Sabbath. SOS, the live Friday night program to help you and your family start your Sabbath off right. You've had a tough week, and now it's time to relax and spend time with God's people from all around the world. That's why Wes and Nancy White invite you into their living room to relax and enjoy life. As always, we'll have lively Bible topics and we'll examine current events. Your input is welcome. We want you to talk to us in our chat room. We want to hear your comments and your questions. So get your dinner and your Bible ready for tonight's show. We're here in our studios in Big Sandy, Texas. And here is your host for Start Our Sabbath, Wes White.
Good evening and happy Sabbath.
And welcome to our 139th show of Start Our Sabbath.
Yeah, and I want to remind our viewers of something, and I really mean this. Words cannot express how much we appreciate your being with us on these Friday night shows. And for those of you who are new to SOS, we do not want you here because we want to pick your pockets by appealing for donations at the end of the show.
No, we don't ask for money from our viewers. We don't accept money from our viewers.
Yeah, we're one of the few shows on the internet that's self-funded and refuses to ask for money or even accept money.
Well, then why are we on the air?
Because we appreciate you and we want to serve you.
And we want to have fun as we begin God's day of rest.
Yeah, we're here in the hopes that we can help you to start your Sabbath on a positive and happy note.
And please talk to us in the chat room tonight. Tell us how you're doing. Please feel free to comment on the show as we go along.
Yeah, we love all your comments and questions. At the end of the show, we like to read what you write in the comment section. So, what?
Hey, speaking of comments from our audience, I just got a text from Ray Hall.
Really?
Ray's asking me about the lifespan of the patriarchs in the book of Genesis.
Well, Ray is asking you about the lifespans of the patriarchs in the book of Genesis?
Yeah.
I find that odd that Ray texted you and not me. I mean, this is a biblical and historical topic, but whoa, wait a minute. I got a text from Ray too. I got two texts. Okay. First one says, please tell me Nancy's number so I can text her. Okay. And the second one says, never mind, I found Nancy's number. This is somewhat disturbing to me, okay?
Well, we need to move on. Sometimes we get complaints that we're not serious enough on SOS and that we should remove all humor from our show.
But why should we get rid of the humor? SOS is not a church service. SOS is not a Bible study.
SOS is a show where we want to serve others and promote hope and joy. And we want to be helpers of your joy.
Yeah, now I want to make mention of the wildfires that had been going on in Southern California. We were reading them just about every day in the news not too long ago. They finally seem to have these horrible fires pretty much under control.
Yeah, so sad. People actually died in that horrible situation.
Yeah, and then there's the loss of property. I read that there could be a loss of literally trillions of dollars in like houses and cars and other property because of that fire.
Yes, that's been called the most expensive natural disaster in the history of the U.S.
That's right. Yeah. Now, I have a theory for why this loss has been so expensive. It's simply because people in Los Angeles have a lot of really nice stuff. Yeah, they got nice stuff in L.A.
Okay, please stop right there.
Here in Big Sandy, we can't identify with all that nice stuff they have out there in L.A.
I'm begging you.
I mean, we could burn down like 300 or 400 acres of Big Sandy, Texas, and we'd be out like, what, $500?
All right, let's move on.
But you said we should have fun in SOS.
Not by poking fun at our hometown.
Okay, you win. Let's get serious. All right. Tonight's show is going to be in the spirit of Ezekiel 34. So let's move on. And tonight, let's talk about some interesting things that are going on in the Sabbath-keeping churches of God these days.
Good idea. Now, Wes, over the past few months, you've been watching an interesting drama play out in one of the many Churches of God organizations.
Oh, have I ever? It's like watching a train wreck.
let's back off the hyperbole a little bit.
All right, it's like watching a snake swallow a rabbit. You can't take your eyes off of it.
Oh,
right?
boy. I'd like to ask you about this situation you're following, but I'm so afraid you're going to go off script and get us into trouble.
Yeah, and you're worried that we're going to lose our liquor license because of my comments, right?
That's right. And please do tell us what's going on, but please don't cross any lines.
Oh, I would never cross any lines.
Right. You never cross any lines except on days ending in Y. Now, please be careful with what you say.
Okay. All right, let me preface this current situation with a story about an experience that Nancy and I had in a church when we first got married. Years ago, Nancy and I were in a church where the pastor was a master manipulator. I mean, he was good. And it was actually entertaining to watch him do his thing. And you talk about Ezekiel 34. He was the epitome, or as Les McCullough would say, the epitome. This guy was one of those who would make an accusation against one of his members, and he'd start off by saying something like, "Someone told me," but he always refused to say who that someone was. Or he'd say, "Everybody's saying," everyone, really, everyone? Saying everyone in this context is the epitome or epitome of overgeneralizing. Saying everyone in this context is an all-ness statement. Well, anyway, one time some of the brethren of his congregation wanted to meet with this pastor to discuss the condition of that church. And these folks thought that there were some problems going on in that local church, problems that needed to be addressed with the pastor. So a bunch of people in that local group all got together for this meeting. And as I said, this pastor was slick. He began the meeting by saying, "I want to ask you what needs are not being met." And he got these guys who called the meeting totally off balance. And they started stumbling and stammering. And right off the bat, the pastor had put them on the defensive. Now, at that time, I was new to that congregation. I didn't feel I'd been there long enough to get involved in the conversation. I just wanted to listen. So before we went into the meeting, I vowed to just sit and not say anything. But when the pastor asked the question to these guys, what needs are not being met, I was thinking to myself, come on, guys, tell them that it's not a matter of discussing needs not being met. Ask him, don't you think there's always room for improvement? Say to him, don't you think we can always try to find better ways to do things? But they didn't. They sat there like a bunch of bumps on a pickle and let this pastor humiliate them into silence. And I learned from that meeting that that pastor was a rogue minister and that the guys on the local board were not up to dealing with him. He outsmarted them at every turn. So in this first segment, I want to talk about another rogue minister, a guy who's out there today, a guy who's gotten totally out of hand in this one church organization.
But you're not going to tell us the specific name of the minister or the name of the Church of God group, right?
That's all right. If that's what you want, I won't go into a lot of detail. I want to keep you happy.
I hope you really mean it this time.
Yeah, all right. This one organization has this minister who's gone completely off the rails. He's preaching all kind of silliness. I mean, conspiracy theories are ingrained into this guy's DNA. He's got the conspiracy theory gene so bad that it's as though he's incapable of saying any sentence without bringing up some conspiracy theory. Further, he feels he just has to preach politics from the pulpit. And I'm starting to notice that preaching politics from the pulpit is just becoming a little less popular these days. I'm trying to figure this out. I think it was more common, say, 3 or 5 years ago, but I'm starting to see a diminishing of this. We'll see. Like maybe the churches out there are starting to come to their senses and say, we really don't need to be preaching politics from the pulpit. Well, we'll see. It's hard to predict these things. Anyway, back to this rogue minister out there today. Unfortunately, the leaders of this organization are, quote unquote, trying to work with him. But this guy is too messed up. He's too far gone. And I keep saying, you can't work with him. He's not gonna change.
What makes you say there's no salvaging this man?
Well, I say that because when it comes to this guy, he can't change. He's unable to change. I mean, for starters, he doesn't want to change. And his bosses just don't get that. And here's what I tell people who tell me about this rogue minister. I hear about this guy from time to time. And I say, look, guys like him are unable to change, and they actually get worse as they get older. Yeah, they get worse with age. And would you frustrate yourself to no end by trying to bend a rock? And when I say this guy is in his simplest form, I'm reminded of the periodic table. Do you remember chemistry class in high school? They taught us the basic elements of matter. Remember that? I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. And this guy is like element 119 on the periodic table. You don't get any simpler than this guy. And I'm not talking about this guy behind his back. If I were to tell him this stuff to his face, he would applaud my assessment of him. He'd clap his hands like a toddler claps his hands after the first time he successfully uses a potty chair. He would totally agree with me that he is indeed in his simplest form, like element 119 on the periodic scale. I keep telling these people who are trying to deal with him, once you operate from the premise that this guy is simple and delusional, your life will become instantly better. So what they have over there is a WWE situation, World Wrestling Entertainment. It's all theater. It's all show. All professional wrestlers talk about how they're going to do this and they're going to do that when they get in the ring. But what goes on in the ring is predetermined. It's all fake. The outcome is determined long before the match starts. And nobody is really hurting the other guy in the ring in WWE. And these church leaders are the same. They talk a good game about what they're going to do, and they end up just doing a lot of theater, a lot of fake posturing. But let's not dwell on that specific point of drama. On our last show, I mentioned how you cannot clean up the Armstrong religion. And some people are aghast at that statement. They say, well, Wes, don't you still follow the Armstrong religion? They say, you keep the seventh-day Sabbath. Your show is called Start Our Sabbath. Of course, we keep the Sabbath. But the seventh-day Sabbath is not an invention of Herbert Armstrong. Herbert Armstrong learned the Sabbath and a lot of his doctrines from the Church of God Seventh Day.
And we're members of the Church of God Seventh Day in Tyler, Texas.
Exactly. Armstrong was a member of the Church of God Seventh Day starting from around 1927 to about 1937. It's like almost a century ago now. Now, with all that being said, please don't think that Nancy and I believe that the Church of God Seventh Day is perfect. It's not. No church organization is perfect. And let me give you an example. In the most recent Bible Advocate, it's the magazine that's published by Church of God Seventh Day, most recent Bible Advocate, there's an article about selecting a church pastor. And remember that in the Church of God Seventh Day, the headquarters office doesn't assign pastors to local churches. Each local congregation selects its own pastor. And this Bible Advocate article gives advice on how you should select the pastor for your local church. And it was written by a man that I dearly love and I have much respect for. The article offers some good advice, but the article is incomplete. And let me explain why I say the article is incomplete, because this is important stuff. I bring this up because I know we have viewers who are in churches where they select their own pastors. So feel free to read the latest Bible Advocate for some advice on selecting your pastor. But I hope you'll also consider the following that I'm about to mention. The article says that a local pastor is accountable first to God and second to the congregation. Okay, time out. Let's ponder this statement that the pastor is accountable first to God and second to the congregation. This type of statement is a cop-out, because in everything we do, God first goes without saying. The statement is trite. It is insipid. We all know that a pastor answers to God first. I mean, come on. Have you ever heard a member who was having a problem with the local pastor? Did he ever say to the pastor, "You're answerable to the congregation first and God second"? No one says that. No one thinks that. This statement is actually a smokescreen. And I say that because my experience is that pastors make this statement about being answerable to God first as an excuse to avoid following the directives of the congregation. I've seen this happen over and over again in the Armstrong churches and in the Church God Seventh Day. Some pastor, will not want to submit to the will of the congregation. These guys hate it sometimes. Not all of them, but a lot of them hate submitting to the will of their congregation. So what a guy will do is he'll justify his obstinance by saying, "Well, I've got to answer to God first," when no one's asking him to go against the